Hi, and welcome back to our series for Preptember 2020. This is part 2 of your first open source project. I'm Turner Bass with Astro Panda Studios. In the last episode, we talked about how to find a short list of projects that you might be interested in and that would be rewarding for you to contribute to. In this episode, we'll be showing you how to vet your short list to see which projects are worth your time. For an example project, I've selected Entity Framework Core, or EF Core, which is one of my favorite repositories to work in. It is a .NET Object Relational Mapper. That part's not important, but that is what we're going to be looking at to see if it is a good repository to spend time in. Let's take a look. The first question I always ask of a new project I'm beginning to contribute to is it actually open source? This may seem confusing, but there are actually open source projects that don't allow contributions. That's usually based on how it's licensed. So as an example, we're looking at the EF Core, or Entity Framework Core, which I mentioned earlier. We're looking at their repository, and the first thing to look for is their license. We can see over here in the About that this is an Apache 2.0 license, and that means that it can be redistributed and copied and modified, and nobody's going to worry about it. There are some licenses that bar you from copying or reproducing any bit of code. They just made it here available so that you can see it. So that's something to really look out for. If you're not sure what is going on, look for the license and look up an explanation for it. Because if we'll look at this license right here, it is pretty dense and it's a lot to read. Read it by all means, but go ahead and look for people who are explaining what this type of license actually means. Other licenses you may see, maybe the MIT license or the GNU license. Either way, always check the license first. Second of all, because open source contribution is engaging in a community, I always want to know, are the maintainers actually responsive to new contributors? I want to know, do they respond to issues? Do they actually accept pull requests? And so let's go ahead and take a look here. If you're looking at a page like this, you'll see issues and pull requests. Let's go ahead and look at an issue. So what I want to see in the issues that tells me whether or not the team is responsive is, are issues being tagged? That's something that maintainers do to help them organize their own work. Are we seeing comments? And then also, if we go, let's see, I'm going to look in this comment, see in this issue. I want to see if there are any comments from contributors. This one is a contributor. He's there several times. That's a good sign. And next, I want to see if there are any comments from members. And then whether or not their comments are actually helpful. And it looks like this has been helpful. So a quick note here, as you're going through issue comments, contributors are people from the community who have submitted code and it's been accepted, which you'll become if you have an accepted pull request. Members are actual people on the maintainer team, and they're in charge of keeping track of issues and making sure that work gets done and getting the features out. They're the ones that are in charge of getting your code out. If I'm seeing a lot of communication from contributors and members, there's a good chance that this will be a good environment to engage in, because there's going to be responsiveness from people who actually know what's going on. It's definitely not fun to be in an environment where every step of the way you have to go and get every bit of information. You're asking the questions and giving the answers to yourself. There's going to be a lot of that, but it's a lot easier if you have people there to help you with your hard questions. Something else that tells me whether or not this project is really live is, when is the last commit, or when was the last time that code got changed? So to check how active a project is and looking at when the last commit is, from the code page on your selected repository, hit this drop down and look for whatever is marked as default in this branches tab. So it looks like release/5.0-RC2 is the default. So this is going to be whatever is the farthest ahead in changes. And up here at the top, there'll be a banner on every repository and every folder inside that repository of when the last commit was and who was in charge of it and what its hash is. So it looks like this repository has 10,400 commits, and the last commit was actually 16 minutes ago. So there's a good chance that as I'm working, there will be people there to notice and come alongside me to help.
Okay, great. I have my repository, but how do I actually start? I can't just start writing code with no direction.
And you're right, you can't do that, or you could try, but you'd probably get really frustrated really fast. And if that's your thing, that's up to you, that's cool, but that's not my thing. So next questions to ask to get some direction are, am I new to this project or am I familiar with this project? If you're new to contributing and you're new to the project, you want to look for specific labels that will indicate to you that this may be a good place to start. Here in the EF Core project, I'm looking for label good first issue. This is a standard tag that's used in almost any repository. Sometimes it may have dashes, sometimes it's just spaces, but good first issue is something that the maintainers have labeled. This is something that someone just getting started working with Entity Framework Core could probably handle and would also be helpful for us. And so you can see here there are 76 open issues. So a lot there. Be sure to look there. And for Hacktoberfest, it's always good to just go ahead and check and see if the label Hacktoberfest is available. And it looks like it's not available here in this one, but it might be in the repository you're looking at. If you're a seasoned veteran of coding and you're familiar with your project, you may go ahead and go for a challenge. Look for a tag, Help Wanted. Help Wanted is something that the team has indicated like they really want some help on this because they may be able to handle it themselves, but due to their own organizational focus at the time, they might not be able to get to it in a timely manner. So I've looked here on EF Core again, and Help Wanted has 6 open. So I might be looking into some of those. So last but definitely not least, you'll want to look at your repository and see if it has a README or a contributing.md file. Sometimes it's called contributors.md, but contributing or contributors.md. Let's take a look. So here in EF Core again, it's pretty standard for the README to be here at the bottom, and it's usually in the root of the project. So here we see that actual README, and GitHub is rendering it here. So you can read through how to install this project, keep scrolling, and then it says contributing. If you're interested in contributing to these projects, see contributing. So this will be the contributing. You can usually find it here, or there's a good chance that the .github folder will be in this project. And from there, you can see things like code of conduct for contributors, a request, pull request template, and the contributing MD. So let's open that up. And here we see information on contributing to this repo is in the contributing guide in ASP.NET Core repo. And this is just because EF Core is part of a greater set of projects. And so they have a standard way of contributing to any of those projects in .NET Core. And you can read through here. It'll tell you how to become involved in discussion, where to go for certain bugs, being part of more specific discussion. You want to actually contribute. Look for things like we accept fixes and features. They may say we do not accept anything. Sometimes they really do say that. And they should give you steps of like making sure that your pull request is ready to actually be reviewed by the team. And there you go. As we've been looking through this project together, this is meeting all of my criteria for being a good project to engage with. It is actually open source and has an open source license. 2, the maintainers and the members are responsive and they're engaged in issue discussion, and they're also involved actively in making commits. The last commit, as we saw, was 16 minutes ago, so this is very active. It's very much alive. Read through the README, read through contributing MD, and now we're ready to go. I hope that you found this helpful. And I'm Turner Bass with Astro Panda Studios. Now go on out there and have some fun starting on your first open source project. Until next time, bye now.